Many thanks for joining ASO Television News at 7. I am Rosemary Kokotega. The headlines. President Tinubu celebrates Tunji Bello at 65, hails him as shining example of character and service. Nigeria Railway Corporation suspends Kajola-Apapa passenger train service. FRSC NITT sign MOU to strengthen transport training, road safety. Federal government to seek compensation for returnees from South Africa. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Mr. Tunji Bello on the occasion of his 65th birthday, describing him as a dependable friend, brother and long-standing ally in the progressive movement. The president said in his tribute, his relationship with Bello in the progressive struggle spans more than 3 decades, from the fight for democracy in the 90s under military rule to the current era of civil governance. President Tinubu praised Bello's unflinching fidelity to progressive ideals, noting his record as a fearless journalist who stood up to military dictatorships and later as a public servant known for diligence and excellence. Recalling 2003, when Lagos State faced an intractable waste management challenge, President Tinubu said he pulled Bello from the newsroom into the Lagos cabinet, where he performed a miracle in record time, making successful administrations to retain him first as Environment Commissioner and later as Secretary to the State Government, SSG. The President described Bello as one of the most accomplished and tested top public servants of his generation in Lagos State, with competencies spanning political science, law, administration, and strategic communication. President Tinubu thanked Bello for his service to the nation and the Progressive Front, praying that Almighty Allah grant him many more years in good health and renewed strength to continue to serve the country. The federal government on Monday defended its sweeping economic reforms, insisting that although the measures have been painful for businesses and households, they have helped pull Nigeria away from fiscal distress and laid the foundation for long-term growth. Vice President Kashim Shettima and Minister of Finance, as well as Coordinating Minister of the Economy Taiwo Oyedele, said the removal of fuel subsidy, foreign exchange reforms and tax changes were necessary to rescue the economy from years of structural distortions. They, however, acknowledged that businesses and ordinary Nigerians were still bearing the burden of high inflation, elevated interest rates, and rising operating costs. Speaking at the 5th Nigeria Employers Summit in Abuja, themed Leveraging Reforms and ESG for Enterprise Competitiveness and Inclusive National Growth, Senator Shettima, represented by his special advisor on general duties, Aliyu Modibo Umar, said the current administration inherited an economy burdened by unsustainable subsidies, weak government revenues, and declining investor confidence. He said the easy option would have been to postpone difficult decisions, but that the leadership required taking hard choices. According to the Vice President, the renewed hope agenda was designed to confront long-standing distortions that had weakened the economy. The Federal Executive Council has approved 4 major health initiatives aimed at strengthening healthcare delivery across the country. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Pate, disclosed this while briefing newsmen after the Federal Executive Council. The approvals include the upgrade of Snake Bite Treatment Center in Katongo, Gombe State into the National Snake Bite Research and Medical Center, the procurement of 10 compressed natural gas-powered mobile blood donation clinic vans for the National Blood Service Agency, and the purchase of tuberculosis commodities.
Federal Executive Council today considered 4 important items related to the health of Nigerian people. First was the upgrade of the Snakebite Treatment Center in Kaltungo, Gombe State, into the National Snakebite Research and Medical Center in Kaltungo, Gombe State, with an expanded mandate for clinical services, research training to respond to the need that exists in our country for adequate attention to snakebite, snake envenomation. Snakebite remains a significant yet neglected public health challenge, particularly in our rural communities here in Nigeria, in the savanna regions, but also across the sub-region, and is especially hard on vulnerable populations, farmers, herders, hunters, women and children whose livelihoods and daily activities expose them to encounters with snakes. And we do have a large burden. Over 43,000 snake bites annually occur, and many of which result in death, disfigurement, disability, and psychological trauma with severe socioeconomic circumstances, severe socioeconomic impact. This new center will be an important new institution that will address the challenge, particularly in the northeast, the northwest, and the north central geopolitical zones of Nigeria, where the issue is most.
The Council also approved the procurement of reproductive health, drugs and commodities for the National Primary Health Care Development Agency to improve access to essential health care services nationwide. The Federal Executive Council also approved a comprehensive overhaul of the National Youth Service Corps (NYSC), marking the first major restructuring of the scheme since it was established 53 years ago. The reforms are aimed at repositioning the NYSC into a key-focused, productivity-driven institution aligned with the federal government's economic agenda. A key aspect of the reform is the change in the leadership structure of the scheme, with the NYSC set to be headed by a civilian, while the military will continue to provide security for corps members nationwide. The Minister of Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, described the reforms as the first holistic review of the scheme in its 53 years history.
The goals are simple and straightforward. We want to build an NYSC out of just mobilization of program. We are looking and working for the strong partnership for skill development, job creations, possibility, and national growth. The key reforms are stated clearly to put a call of details in digital way and a self-development core members for security and also attentions in special issues. These are prepared to even the structures of the reform of NYSC. This memo continues by putting hope and also preparing a better state of camps in all states of the Federation, making the state government, the subnational, a clear standard orientation camp for all young people. And also the passing out parade should be redesigned from just a parade to a ceremony, a graduation ceremony properly. And also it's been approved that
the minister said the approved reforms would reposition the scheme as a skills-driven, productivity-focused and youth-empowering institution that aligns with President Bola Tinubu's vision of building a $1 trillion economy. The federal government has announced completion of the first section of 118 kilometers of the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano highway, costing 257 billion naira. Minister of Works David Umahi announced the development while briefing journalists after the Federal Executive Council FEC meeting held at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. According to him, the last section of 164 kilometers will be completed by November 2026. Umahi noted that President Tinubu also approved 27 road projects valued at over 3.9 trillion naira across 15 states as part of the federal government's drive to improve road infrastructure nationwide. The approved projects, according to the minister, span Adamawa, Benue, Cross River, Ebonyi, Ekiti, Kogi, Kwara, Lagos, Niger, Ondo, Osun, Oyo, Plateau, Taraba, and Yobe states. He said the council approved the award of the 409-kilometer dual carriageway project in Niger State under the tax credit scheme to businessman Aliko Dangote at a cost of 1.8 trillion naira. The minister further listed other approvals as 86 billion naira each for the reconstruction of the Enugu-Abakaliki road with the flyover and the Adigbo-Otokpo road, traversing Benue and Cross River states, as well as the full business case for the operation and maintenance concession of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the directive for the commencement of reconstruction of failed sections along the Ibadan axis using concrete pavement. Chief Justice of Nigeria, CJN, Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun, has announced major reforms aimed at improving the speed and efficiency of the Supreme Court. She made the announcement during the opening ceremony of the Nigeria Bar Association NBA Lagos Branch Law Week 2026. According to her, the new system will improve case tracking, reduce delays, strengthen court administration, and make the justice system more transparent. Justice Kekere-Ekun also announced plans by the court to unveil the Supreme Court mandatory upload of electronic copies of processes, record of appeal, and other matters. Practice Directions 2026 on July 1, 2026. According to her, the new practice directions will require lawyers to upload electronic copies of court processes and records in addition to existing paper filing system. Justice Kekere-Ekun stressed that technology should support the work of judges and not replace them. She said the reforms are designed not only to modernize the judiciary but to also improve public confidence in the administration of justice through faster, more transparent, and accessible court services. The lawmaker representing Moba Ile-Jemeje Idosi Federal Constituency of Ekiti State in the House of Representatives, Mr. Kolawale Akinlayo, has released what he described as documentary evidence to support his claims that the All Progressives APC party's candidate, Mr. Kunle Ibrahim, was still serving as senior special assistant to the President on National Assembly matters when he contested the party's primary election. This is a follow-up to previous address by the lawmaker challenging Mr. Ibrahim's emergence as the party's candidate, where he alleged that the former presidential aide failed to comply with President Tinubu's directive requiring appointees of government seeking elective offices to resign before participating in party primaries. He argued that Mr. Ibrahim's participation in the May APC primary contravened Section 88, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2026, which requires political appointees to resign before contesting elective positions. Mr. Akinloye, addressing journalists in Abuja, maintained that Mr. Ibrahim remained in office and continued to perform the functions of his appointment at the time the primary election was conducted. While Mr. Ibrahim dismissed the allegation in an interview with the print medium, insisting that he fully complied with both the Electoral Act and the President's directive before entering the race, Representative Akinlayo, in a fresh development on Tuesday, forwarded copies of Mr. Ibrahim's April and May 2026 salary payslips to the media, insisting that the documents undermine the former presidential aide's claims that he had resigned before the primary elections. You're watching ASO Television News at 7. Watch us live on DSTV 392, StarTimes TV 127, Free TV 507 on the UHF band, channel 38. Coming up after the break, Nigeria Railway Corporation suspends Kajola Papa passenger train service, as well as other stories. Stay with us.
From June 11th till July 19th, everything fit way. The FIFA World Cup 2026 go happen. Touchlight all 104 matches on top 4 correct channels. Sharply grab your GoTV decoder, Go Tenor plus 1 month jolly for only 15,000 naira. Live on Super Sport. Only.
The federal government has inaugurated the Universal Basic Education Commission (UBEC) Ministerial Implementation and Monitoring Committee to accelerate the completion and operationalization of smart, bilingual and alternative schools across the country. Minister of Education Dr. Maruf Tunji Alausa said while inaugurating the committee in Abuja that the move is to ensure that government investments in basic education translates into meaningful learning opportunities for Nigerian children. This report is being presented from our studio. I'm afraid we bring you that in a subsequent bulletin. The Bureau of Public Procurement, BPP, will unveil the national guidelines for public procurement of food and related services on July 13 in Abuja as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen procurement reforms. This is contained in a statement issued by the Director General of BPP, Dr. Adebowale Adedokun, on Tuesday in Abuja. Dr. Adedokun said the initiative is being implemented in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, the Federal Ministry of Education, and other key stakeholders. He said the guidelines would apply to school feeding programs, hospitals, government agencies, correctional facilities, and the hospitality sector, ensuring uniform standards for food procurement and related service delivery. The Director General said highlights of the event would include a keynote address and presentation of the guidelines featuring an overview of the new procurement standards and compliance metrics. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sunday Aneke, has charged commanders and personnel of the Nigerian Air Force (NAF) to prioritize safety and ensure the protection of all assets entrusted to them through strict adherence to established standards and best practices. Air Marshal Aneke said the Safety Review Board provides an important platform to assess the service's safety performance, evaluate emerging risks, identify areas requiring improvement, and deliberate on measures aimed at strengthening safety awareness across NAF operations. He records that during the Maiden Safety Review Board meeting in December 2025, he directed that future meetings should span at least 2 days to allow for detailed presentations, comprehensive reviews, and more robust deliberations. The NAF's chief urged participants to engage in honest, objective, and constructive discussions, noting that the success of the meeting would be measured by the quality of recommendations generated and their effective implementation across units and formations. Air Marshal Aneke expressed concern over recent safety incidents and hazard reports, which he said highlighted shortcomings in risk assessment, procedural compliance, supervision, maintenance, discipline, human factors management, and reporting practices. The Chief of Staff noted that a proactive safety culture aligns with his command philosophy of building and sustaining a professional mission-ready force capable of delivering decisive air power. The Federal Road Safety Corps (FRSC) and the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology (NITT) Zaria have signed a memorandum of understanding aimed at strengthening transport training, research, innovation, and road safety in Nigeria. The agreement, signed by the Corps Marshal Shehu Mohammed and the Director General of NITT, Dr. Bayeru Farah, seeks to enhance professional capacity, modernize driver training, promote research, expand ICT-driven learning, and improve human capital development in the transport sector. Corps Marshal Mohammed described the partnership as a major step towards building a safer, smarter, and more efficient transport system adding that the MOU provides a practical framework for implementing reforms that will improve institutional capacity and produce globally competitive transport professionals. On his part, Director General of NITT, Dr. Farah, said the collaboration would align Nigeria's transport education and research with global best practices to support sustainable national development. The ceremony was attended by stakeholders from transport sector and development partners, underscoring the significance of the partnership in advancing Nigeria's transport reform agenda. The Nigerian Railway Corporation (NRC) has announced temporary halt to its Kajola-Apapa passenger train service. The 3-week suspension is designed to allow for essential scheduled maintenance on both locomotives and coaches to ensure long-term commuter safety. The temporary shutdown is scheduled to take effect on Monday, July 6, 2026, with regular services expected to fully resume on Monday, July 27, 2026. Commuters looking to catch the final ride before the service break must do so by Friday, July 3. While passenger services will be paused, the NRC emphasizes that the vital economic artery moving goods will remain wide open. Freight train operations to and from the Apapa Port Complex will continue completely uninterrupted. Additionally, all other train terminals operating across both the narrow gauge and standard gauge corridors nationwide will maintain their normal schedules throughout the 3-week maintenance window. To help ease the burden on stranded commuters, the Railway Corporation is advising daily travelers to pivot the Lagos mass transit train services, which will continue running every weekday. The corporation expressed regret for any inconveniences this temporary disruption may cause and thanks commuters for their patience as they work to upgrade transit safety. For further updates on schedules and resumes, passengers are encouraged to monitor local station announcements. The second batch of Nigerians voluntarily returning from South Africa has arrived the country as the federal government continues its evacuation exercise ahead of South Africa's June 30 deadline for undocumented foreigners to leave. A total of 269 returnees landed at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos aboard an Air Peace flight from Johannesburg. The returnees, who were escorted by officials of the Nigerian mission in South Africa, were received by senior officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, led by the Director of the African Affairs Department, Ambassador Haruna Ali Gombe. He conveyed President Bola Tinubu's assurances of the government's commitment to the safety and welfare of Nigerians abroad. The latest arrival brings the total number of Nigerians evacuated under the ongoing exercise to 335, following the earlier return of 66 Nigerians on June 24 aboard a South African Airways flight facilitated by a Nigerian benefactor. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, via its spokesperson Kemiebi Ebiemfa, said the evacuation process is still ongoing, with more flights expected in the coming days to bring home Nigerians who have been screened and cleared for voluntary return. It also assured that the federal government will continue engaging South African authorities to safeguard the interests of Nigerians residing in the country. Meanwhile, acting Nigeria High Commissioner to South Africa, Alexander Ajayi, has said that the Nigerian government will engage with the South African government to seek compensation for Nigerians forced to leave behind businesses and properties amid anti-immigrant protests in the country. Ajayi disclosed this on Tuesday as another batch of Nigerians arrived in Lagos from South Africa under the federal government's ongoing voluntary evacuation program. He said those being repatriated are Nigerians who voluntarily opted to return home ahead of the latest planned anti-immigrant protests. The envoy said the federal government had begun documenting businesses and properties abandoned by returnees and would engage the South African government to seek adequate compensation. The acting High Commissioner also dismissed claims that most Nigerians in South Africa are undocumented, insisting that they largely migrated to the country legally. He attributed the situation to delays by the South African Home Office in processing the renewal of immigration documents for many foreign nationals, saying the affected immigrants should not be blamed for the backlog. And now to end the news at 7, we remind you of one of our headlines. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has congratulated Mr. Tunji Bello on the occasion of his 65th birthday, describing him as a dependable friend, brother, and long-standing ally in the progressive movement. Many thanks for watching. I am Rosemary Ukokotega. Good night.